All right, Chair Jones, the meeting is now live and broadcast.
Recording has started.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to call the Sacramento County LAFCO meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. You may be seated. I would like to read the statement regarding public comments. This meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T UVerse. This meeting is closed captioned and live streamed at metro14live.staccounty.gov. Today's meeting will be repeated Sunday, March 6th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/MetroCable14. All right, with the public announcements being done, would the clerk please call the roll?
1 second before we do that, I also have an announcement to be read. This meeting is live streamed and temporary closed to in-person public participation. The clerk's office is in the process of hosting hybrid public meetings that will provide board members and members of the public with the option to participate in the meeting either in person or remotely. Thank you for your patience and support. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial area code 916-875-2501. To provide your contact information when the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be contacted by phone and transferred into the meeting to make their public comment. Written statements are always welcome and accepted. Send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the public record. Thank you. And if we're ready for the roll call, Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Budge?
He is on the attendee side, just so you know. She is on the attendee side. I've requested that she be moved to presenters.
Thank you. Okay. Desmond? Frost?
Here.
Little?
Here.
Liebig?
Here.
And Laloli? Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
So just for clarification, could maybe the clerk's office move Commissioner Linda Budge from an attendee to a participant so she can talk during the meeting, if that's possible?
Michael, are you there?
Yeah, we can do that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and it looked like Commissioner Lowley might have just joined as well. I don't have him on the gallery though.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, good.
Can you guys hear me?
Welcome.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
It
Thank
just
you.
takes a few seconds for everyone's photo and microphone to come live, I believe. So thank you very much. Any luck on Commissioner Budge?
Well,
Commissioner Budge is not an attendee.
I think I can talk to you. But
There you are. We can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you, but we don't see you, but we're glad we can hear you.
every time I click on the video thing, it goes away and jumps up someplace else.
Well, then shall we continue with the
Yeah, don't worry
audio
about it.
portion?
Don't worry about it. We're good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. And I'm going to have the public forum public comment announcement. The public is encouraged to address the commission concerning any matter not on the agenda. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. The commission is prohibited from discussing or taking any action on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public wanting to speak?
There is no public comment at the moment.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Florence. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is consent calendar, and I will entertain a motion for approval.
Budge will move approval.
Frost, second.
Thank you. If no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Budge?
Yes.
I don't see Desmond. Frost?
Aye.
Little?
Aye.
Liebig?
Aye.
Maloli? I can't hear you, Commissioner Lowly. You're muted. Commissioner Lowly,
Uh-oh.
wants your approval on the consent calendar?
He said he left.
Looks like we may have lost Commissioner Lowly.
Okay, Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor?
Okay, thank you. And I believe Commissioner Budge has a request for the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would request that we adjourn tonight's meeting with best wishes and sympathy for all of our friends and neighbors who have come to live with us from former Soviet Union countries, and an earnest hope that we can soon get back to respecting each other's cultures. Thank you, Gay.
Okay, so that'll be a moment of commemorative silence to support that. Thank you very much, Commissioner Budge. All right, moving on to public hearing items. We have item number 7. Madam Clerk, would you please read the item?
Yes, public hearing item to consider and approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022 to 23.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just pushing you to the microphone, Jose.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will be presenting on the proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23. As you are aware, LAFCO adopts its budget in the 2-step process. First is the adoption of a proposed budget that gets distributed to the funding agencies. And then at a subsequent meeting, LAFCO approves the final budget, which at that point, it adopts via resolution. And again, it is distributed out to the funding agencies, and the share of the funding agencies for the LAFCO budget is also calculated and distributed out for them to be submitted prior or during the fiscal year 22-23. The proposed budget has to be approved by May 1st, and the final budget must be approved by June 15th. For members of the audience who are not familiar, LAFCO has 4 different revenue funding sources. The first one is interest revenue, which is just like a bank account. Any funds that are kept in the bank in LAFCO's account within the county treasury generate interest, and then that interest is then deposited into LAFCO and credited into LAFCO's account. That tends to be pretty minimal. It fluctuates with the savings interest rate, and the commission has no control over how much revenue is generated via this fund. The second revenue source is called project revenue, which indicates basically projects that come into LAFCO from various proponents, be they a private party or a governmental entity. they get billed on a time and materials basis for how much time their project takes up with LAFCO staff. So that revenue basically is as LAFCO staff spends time on a project, it collects revenue to offset its expenses for processing that project. By law, LAFCO cannot create a profit from this. It can only bill on a time and materials basis. The third fund source is essentially any monies that were saved from one fiscal year gets carried over into the following fiscal year. So any funds that are unexpended in the 21-22 fiscal period will then be carried over into the 22-23 budget year as a revenue source. So the money is never lost or never squirreled away, not unless the amount of funds into reserve. And the last and largest source of funding for LAFCO is called the agency contributions or agency assessments. Basically, by law, LAFCO is funded by the agencies in which it has jurisdictions. A third of the agency contributions come from the county by itself. A second third is split between the cities of Sacramento County, which is a total of 7. And the last third is split between the special districts. By special provision, the city of Sacramento picks up half of the city share, which would be 1/6 of the LAFCO agency contributions. And the Sacramento Municipal Utility District picks up half of the special districts, which again is another 1/6 of the total agency contributions. The remainder of the city share or the special district share is basically split among those entities on a proportional basis based on their revenues. So that takes care of where LAFCO gets its money. What you'll be deciding today is how LAFCO spends the money. And I am going to share my screen to indicate basically the budget for this fiscal year. And here it is. This is attachment A to your staff memo, commissioners, if you wanted to follow along. Basically, there are 3 separate categories of expenditures. There's the employee expense, there's the operating costs, and the appropriation for contingency. And I will walk you through all 3 of these. First is the employee expense, and there's 2 rough categories. One is for LAFCO employees themselves, which would be LAFCO staff, and then commissioners. By your local policies, you receive a stipend for attending the LAFCO meetings. And so you see these 3 different categories that are here. Regular employee is the employee staff. The second line item is committee members, which would be you commissioners. And because you do receive the stipend, we do have to collect taxes and report to Social Security. And so then those funds are included as well in the third line item. The employee expense not only includes your current staff, which is your clerk and myself, your executive officer, but also includes the salaries and benefits for a new analyst whom you authorized to pursue at the last LAFCO meeting. For purposes of illustration, I have the employee costs here in this category. Please note that on your budget that you receive on a monthly basis as part of your packet, the actual salaries and benefits for your employees are actually included under other professional services. Because if you recall, LAFCO employees are actually employees of the County of Sacramento, which have been assigned to work exclusively on LAFCO work, on LAFCO matters. And so the county it basically issues the paychecks and does the salaries and benefits, plus the applicable taxes. Then LAFCO reimburses the county. So we're not employees per se of LAFCO. So in your monthly budget report, you will not see the salaries and benefit costs from either your clerk or myself under regular employee. That will only include your cost, commissioners, as part of your stipend that you receive on a monthly basis. The operating costs are included here. As you note, I basically adjusted some of the items from the previous year's budget. Part of it is to accommodate the expenses of adding a new staff member. And the other part of it is to ensure that there are some funds that are available to fund municipal service review refreshes, which you also authorized at the last meeting. And so that will begin the process of being able to hire contractors to be able to assist us in that effort. And then the last item is your operating contingency, which, as you'll note, is substantially higher than previous years. And this is because, as explained on the staff memo, your operating contingency currently is set up at 2 to 3%. Given the uncertainties in the economy and inflation, I recommend that we bump up the contingency to 10% of operating costs, just to ensure that there are sufficient funds in the LAFCO budget to accommodate any unforeseen expenses, or in the case that I seriously misunderstated any of the expenses, that we were able to cover that within the LAFCO budget. And then the second page of attachment A are basically the revenue breakdown. As I explained to you, the 4 different sources of revenue from your commission. The agency contributions or assessments are about 3% higher than previous years. And that is because the agency contributions actually have not been adjusted since budget year or fiscal year 2016, 2017. And so in order to be able to have sufficient funds in the LAFCO budget, those went up by a modest 3%. So that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have relating to this or anything that's on the staff memo.
Thank you very much, Jose, for that report and all the associated information that was in our packet. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments from my fellow commissioners?
Madam Chair? Yes. Thank you. I did want to note that when I read through this and I saw that 10%, I was pleased, because 2 to 3% seems, that doesn't give you much room for error. Not that I'm looking for you to make mistakes, but just given what's going on in our economy and the uncertainties that may be coming down the line, I think it's prudent to have a little more reserve. And thank you for being more conservative in that regard.
So, okay.
Yes, Commissioner Budge.
Oh, I want to echo Commissioner Little's comments. I appreciate the explanation that our executive director brought a couple of months ago, and is adjusting the budget to be more realistic. And I realize it may cost all of us a little more, but the idea that there would not have been an increase since 2016 is a little naive at best. And so I appreciate his realistic look at what it takes to run the agency.
Thank you, Commissioner Budge. Are there any other commissioners that would like to speak or comment? Hearing none and seeing none.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Frost indicated she wanted to ask a question.
Oh, thank you. Well, I didn't have a lot to say. I was just going to say I concur with Commissioner Little and Budge. That's all I had to say.
So do we need a motion? Do we need a motion to adopt the preliminary budget?
Yes, we do. However, before we do that, we need to open it to we need to officially open the public hearing.
Good point.
And take any comments. And so stated, it is now open. Madam Clerk, do we have any public members waiting to comment on this?
Hello,
Mr.
Chair
Gonzalez?
Jones. Oh. Hi, Chair Jones. There is no public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Appreciate that. All right, now Commissioner Budge. Yes, we have a staff recommendation to adopt the proposed budget.
And I will make that motion. There was a a picture that showed up on the upper left-hand side of my screen for somebody named Manuel Gomez. But it went
Right,
away.
Manuel,
That's clerks, that's staff.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
we are lucky
Then
enough to have two folks staffing us tonight, Manuel and Diane.
Okay, then I will make that motion.
Second, Frost.
All right, motion's been first and seconded. Are there any final comments from the commissioners? If not, hearing none and seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Budge,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
Little,
Aye.
Liebig,
Aye.
Laloli, and Jones.
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor?
Okay, thank you. Our next item, business item number 8, is a report back on annual audit fiscal year 2020-2021.
Madam Chair, I am pleased to introduce to you Jeff Gamir. He is one of the team members within James Marta and Company, your auditors, who will make a presentation on the results of the financial statements for LAFCO for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Jose. I just wanted to check, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Jeff.
Perfect. I wasn't sure if I was in because I couldn't see my name under the presenters line. So let me share my screen right now. Can you guys see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so good evening again. I'm Jeff Gamir. I'm part of James Marta and Company, and I am the senior auditor or the in charge to the Commission's 2020-21 fiscal year audit. And here I am to present to you the results of the audit process, everything that we did to review the Commission's financial statements as of June 30, 2021. So as part of the board packet that you guys see, there's a couple letters in there. First one is the communications with those charged with governance. Second one is the actual audit report. And within that audit report, towards the end, you will see a separate letter called the Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control and on Compliance. For the first one, for the communications with those charged with governance, we as auditors of the Commission are required to communicate with the Commission some of the items that we performed as part of the audit. It discusses what the planned scope and timing of the audit was, any issues that we came across with regard to the audit. You can see on the communication with those charged with governance, some of the items that we, towards the end, some of the adjustments that we performed and we had to book with respect to the Commission's June 30, 2021 financial statements. But I'll go over the financials, like the actual figure amounts later in the following slides. So scope of our audit, again, we performed a financial audit. We verified whether the Commission's financial statements are accurate as of June 30, 2021. And we also have 2 more reports. Again, like I said, the report to you guys, the Commission, or to those charged with governance, along with the report on internal control and on compliance that you will see at towards the end of the Commission's audit report. So we as auditors, our main responsibility is to express an audit opinion, indicate whether the Commission had a clean financial statements for the fiscal year. As part of the audit, the management or Jose, Diane, they also have responsibility. So the financial statements are the Commission's responsibility, and we as the auditors, all we do is perform tests to verify whether those numbers are accurate as of June 30, 2021. Overall, I just wanted to preface this by saying it was a clean audit. So we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that an auditor can give. Basically, all the numbers that are reported on the financial statements are accurate and true as of June 30, 2021. As part of the audit, we worked closely with Jose, the new executive officer. We had some preliminary questions and inquiries. We discussed some accounting issues that the commission might have, and compliance on some of the accounting standards that exist for the commission. So like I said earlier, one of the letters that we issue as part of the audit is the communication with those charged with governance. So you'll see a lot of sections in here. You'll see whether we consulted with any other accountants, which is we did not, whether we had any disagreements with management or difficulties that were encountered as far as the audit is concerned, which is also not. And we also indicated that we received representations from management. Basically, the commission is attesting to the fact that these financial statements are the commission's responsibility. And yeah, so the ultimate responsibility falls upon the commission. Part of this communication with those charged with governance letter, and I believe you'll see this on the second page, are some of our discussions on some of the significant accounting policies and changes within those policies. So as a governmental entity, there's a lot of governmental accounting standards that get published regularly. We looked through all those standards and checked whether it would apply to the commission. The commission's accounting is pretty straightforward. So none of those new accounting standards had to be implemented for the commission. So there were no changes with regard to the accounting policies. And you'll also see a section in there that talks about management judgments and some accounting estimates. We deem as auditors that there were no significant management judgments or accounting estimates. Like I said earlier, the commission's accounting and transactions are pretty straightforward. So yeah, if you have any, look, there are more sections on the governance letters, but those are some of the big items that I wanted to discuss with you guys. Going back to the main audit procedure, like I said earlier, our main responsibility is to express an opinion whether the financial statements are accurate and fair. As part of the audit, we were required to gain an understanding of the commission's accounting policies, systems, and procedures. We tested the commission's internal controls. For example, the receipts, how the commission processes receipts and disbursements, and some journal entries. We also gathered some audit evidence, like we asked the commission for accounting statements, copies of invoices and deposit permits. We reviewed those items, we performed some sample calculations, and also we reviewed some of the accounting methods and reporting to make sure that they are in compliance with the requirements of that they are in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. So just to go over the main results of the audit, a couple items that we wanted to bring to the commission attention. So as far as plan scope and timing, there were a couple delays because of some of the adjustments made and staffing changes within the commission. With these adjustments, because of the adjustments that we deemed necessary to be booked for the June 30, 2021 financials, we had to test more transactions to verify that those other transactions that were reported are still accurate. So like I said earlier, it's a clean audit as far as the numbers are concerned. So it's a modified opinion. But I do want to say that there is a finding that we identified as part of the performance of the audit, and I'll explain that in one of my following slides. And then whether there were any significant adjustments or disclosures not reflected in the financial statements. As part of towards the end of our review process, we compare the commission's financial statements against all the standards that are applicable to them to make sure that all the disclosures are reflected, and the answer is yes. So all the disclosures that are reflected that are all the disclosures that need to be disclosed on the financial statements are we deem to be there. Like I said earlier, our audit resulted in an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that we can provide, and you will see that within the first 2 pages of the audited financial statements. So let's take a look at some of the numbers that we reported. There's 3 main categories that I wanted to point out: the assets, liabilities, and the net position. So for the assets, actually all 3 of these elements of the financial statements went up. So assets went up by 334,000. Liabilities also went up by 250, and all these changes resulted in an increase in the net position, or in another word, the income to the commission of $84,000. The main reason why the assets increased is because of the accruals of some of the assessments or contributions from the cities, and liabilities were also up by $250K because of some of the payroll costs that were related to the commission's previous executive officer. And for the income statement, or what we call as statement of activities, there's also 3 sections: the total, the revenues, the expenses, and the change in net position, or the net income per se. Revenues were down by $77,000, mostly because of the halting of some of the commission's projects. As far as assessments are concerned, the numbers were consistent from year to year, still the same $700,000 amount, but the other revenues that the commission normally receive were much less this year because of the impacts of the pandemic, projects being paused for a time. Along with the reduction in the revenues were reduction in expenses, because again, projects were halted. Some of the commission experienced some cost savings, and mainly this all resulted in a net income of, like I said in the previous slide, of $84,000. But if you compare it to last year, or the 2020 fiscal year's net income, it is down by $37,000 from the $121,000 that was reported back in the 2020 fiscal year. So another letter that you can see on the audit report towards the back of it is our report on internal control and compliance. Like I said, as auditors, our main responsibility is to provide opinion on the fairness of the financial statements. We just have this supplementary report wherein we indicate some of the internal control items that we deem significant for the commission to know. As far as non-compliance with accounting principles are concerned, we did not identify any, but like I mentioned earlier, we issued a finding. We deem it a material weakness, which I will be describing on the following slide. So main typical or generally accepted accounting principles indicate that revenues need to be recorded when the resources become measurable and available, while expenditures be recognized when the related liability is incurred. When we were reviewing the Commission's 2020-21 activity, we noticed that and it was also brought to our attention by Jose, that the cities were not billed their 2020-21 assessments. Additionally, the county's assessment for the Sacramento County's assessment was not recorded in the 2020-21 year. The issue with the assessment timing is because of how the Sacramento County's the timing of when the Sacramento County processed the bill or the deposit permit that the commission received. Another issue that we came across with is related to the former executive officer's payroll costs. We noticed that some of his payroll were not reported in the appropriate fiscal year. And another thing is that Jose also brought to our attention that some of his costs were never submitted to the county for their reimbursement or for payment in time. We discussed this with Jose, and one thing that we recommended, and we've actually talked to him about it, and he's confirmed that the commission is currently doing our recommendation, is that the commission will be billing those government units, like Jose mentioned earlier in the budget meeting, that the commission will be billing them at the beginning of the fiscal year. Also, claims will be submitted to the county in time to ensure that these expenditures are being recorded in the proper accounting period. So this is not a ding on the audit. The numbers are accurate as of June 30, 2021. This is more of a recommendation to the commission. And as we met with Jose at the end of the audit, we verified that the commission has implemented this by making sure that all those billings are made timely and that all claims are submitted to the county in time. So that concludes my presentation on the Commission's June 30, 2021 fiscal year audit. I wanted to let you know, I wanted to see if you guys have any questions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Gamir. Mm-hmm. Are there any questions or comments from my fellow commissioners?
This is Sue Frost.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you for your presentation and thank Jose. You know, I know those didn't seem like huge things, but I appreciate that you are making these, you know, picking up on this, Jose, and recognizing it, and it makes me feel comfortable. I appreciate your leadership and sensibility in the way you're. It's important to me, and I think it's important to the entire board. So, thank you, and thank you, Jeff, for your audit, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Frost.
I just want to echo. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to echo that about the audit itself and about the fact that Jose, I think, has done a great job of going through all this and really understanding the whole process here in Sacramento County and finding ways to just identifying things right off the bat, which is very helpful and very positive for us going forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there any other commissioners? I also would like to thank Mr. Gamir for his presentation. And I mean, it was staff that brought that material weakness forward, consulted with Mr. Gamir, and it's in the process of getting rectified. So that shows a lot of teamwork and also looking into the future. I have great confidence, as Commissioner Frost mentioned. I feel the same way. Now, my understanding is this is a received presentation and file. Is there anything else, Jose?
No, that is correct. Unless council corrects me, I believe it's just you should just receive the audit.
That's correct. It's a receive and file. So it's the commission's discretion whether they want to take a motion to do that or just the chair's direction.
If there's no public comment, then I would move that we receive and file.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Do I hear a second?
Well, we don't need a motion if we're receiving and filing, do we?
It's at your discretion.
Actually.
Hello, Chair Jones. Hi, this is Manuel with the clerk staff. I just wanted to let you know there is no public comment for this item.
Thank you, Manuel. Actually, it's our option, and Commissioner Budge proposed a motion, so we can go through that motion. It doesn't really matter.
I'll second that, Commissioner Liebig.
Motion first and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Budge.
Yes.
Frost.
Aye.
Little.
Aye.
Liebig.
Aye.
Lowly. And Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're moving on to item number 9, discussions on continuing to meet remotely. Jose, would you like to give a brief overview of that, and we can open it up for discussion?
Happy to do so, Madam Chair. I'd like to once again thank Jeff and his team for all their work on the audit. This item is, as promised, back in November, staff brought a comment to you relating to meeting remotely and continuing to meet remotely. If you recall at the time, things were looking up in terms of the pandemic, but we were not out of the woods. The Delta variant was still resurging. We didn't know about Omicron, but it was around the corner. And the commission at the time in November said that, staff request was to get a direction from the commission on whether or not the commission should continue to meet remotely, and to basically indicate to staff up to how long you wanted to meet remotely, and then you visit the issue at a later date. And so the commission's direction was that you would continue to meet remotely, and then you would revisit the decision in March as to whether or not you wanted to continue doing so. Now, in between that time, obviously, we saw the big surge in numbers. We also saw Sacramento County Public Health Order to basically recommend that all local agencies actually require all local agencies to meet remotely in order to keep the numbers low. But since that time, the wave seems to have subsided, and mask mandates have been relieved in a lot of in a lot of places. You still have a few things that are still in effect, but for the most part, a lot of the public health orders have been relaxed. Specifically, the Sacramento County Public Health Department rescinded its recommendation to meet remotely. In addition, mask mandates have been relaxed at the state level. However, be that as it may, the governor's state of emergency is still in effect, and in addition, federal CDC and OSHA requirements still require that you practice safe distance. So at this point, what staff is asking is basically to get direction from the commission about what its preference is on continuing to meet remotely, and if so, to basically, again, kind of, for the sake of being able to plan at the staff level in terms of notices and giving people notification about how your commission is going to be meeting for the next few months, to also, again, give us a date period that, you either will be meeting remotely until this date and you'll revisit the issue, or meet in person until a certain date and you'll revisit the issue. Obviously, if something changes, a new variant emerges, and then suddenly, everything starts locking down again, staff will make sure that you meet remotely and accommodate it if you decide to come back in person. Two things that I wanted to bring out to your attention. The first one is that my original intent was for the April meeting to be relatively quick, and so I was going to recommend meeting virtually. However, circumstances have changed in that the CalAFCO workshop is canceled, and as a result, I'm not as crunched for the agenda and the packet as I originally thought I would be. And so a discussion on the MSRs and your project plan for that will be brought at the April meeting. So again, that can be done either virtually or in person. Just want to let you know that the April meeting is not going to be as short as I anticipated, just even a few weeks ago. And the second thing I wanted to bring up to your attention was, again, in consideration of your decision or your discussion, your clerk was able to get some information relating to how the chambers would be able to accommodate in person if that's what you choose to do. So without further ado, I'm going to ask if your clerk can summarize her findings.
So meeting in person is allowed, but the state of California state of emergencies is still in effect, but likely to be removed later this month. If the commission wants to meet in person, there'll be less than 6 feet between the commissioners at the dais. At this time, in the Sacramento County area, most city councils are meeting at least partially in person. The city of Sacramento, unless someone corrects me, my understanding is that they met in their chambers, but no public was allowed in the room. The Public Library Authority, Flood Control Agency, and Air Quality Management are fully virtual, but this might change soon. And other boards and commissions are just starting to return to in-person meetings. And it's not certain how public comment will be handled at the Board of Supervisors meeting next week. The Board of Supervisors are going back to in-person meetings starting March 8th. The county has extended the resolution allowing county boards and commissions to hold remote meetings through April 8th. Independent boards such as LAFCO are not subject to this update, so therefore we're having this discussion. As for masks, the government lifted the restrictions. Masks are recommended to be worn if not vaccinated. This is also subject to change. And in time, all of these things may change, but currently it's the commission's decision on what you feel comfortable with. Commission Chair, I return the meeting back to you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Frost has her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Today I was in a CSAC meeting where we were having this same discussion around the Brown Act, and there is conversations at the legislature to update the Brown Act, and I'm not sure where that conversation will go, but I think a lot of us at CSAC from all the counties in California had a keen interest in what that would look like. I can speak for me personally, that I think the Brown Act and the Constitution and the law, as it relates to the Constitution, which goes to our, basically our First Amendment right to assemble and redress our government. Those are all important things. But and I'm not going to say but, I'm going to say and I believe, there's somewhat of a cultural change that's probably happened through COVID that we can't deny. This is my opinion. I believe there's some boards that, it's really important for us to be there in person, because there's people that are going to be there on every one of those board meetings that want to be face to face with us and in our face. And that's what our job is. I'm not sure LAVCO is one of those, although there have been times when in our LAVCO meetings, like, when we're talking about the Southeast Connector, or, whether or not we were going to, allow, farmlands to be developed, or, there are, different things that we've done along the way that have been very controversial, where there were people at our 5:30 p.m. meeting. And so I think if that's the case, if you have an important issue that, a lot of the community needs to be there in your face, we should be there and let them be in person, talking to us. But if it's a meeting where, 90, I'm going to say or 90% of our meetings are not that way. We have a 5:30 p.m. meeting, but generally we don't have a lot of public comment on a lot of the things we do. So I think that's a consideration for us to talk about. I'm opening that, to say, maybe we could be flexible and say if we have an agenda item that it requires us to be there, present and accounted for, that we're there so they can redress us. And then the needs of the board and the practicality of all of this. And, if the law does change, we're still in an emergency, so we can do what we want for now. But as this progresses, we need to think about how we think about this. And the other point that was brought up in CSAC today was, because the Brown Act requires that, someone can be there, present and there to redress their government. So if you're in a Zoom call, we have to list all of our addresses, personal addresses, for a period of time. The clerk, Diane, you can confirm, or Deanne, you can confirm that I'm right, but until they decide, until we know how that works, to update based on the cultural change that's happened here. And I'm not sure we can deny it, but I do think I personally would like to see that we have that firm respect for our constituents who we work for, we represent, and they have unalienable rights that were theirs before we became a government. They set us up to represent them. So I think it's important for us to keep them at the forefront of our thoughts. And that's the end of my statement. For now.
Yeah, Commissioner Frost. We always have ... after everything we say. Who is next in our queue?
Yeah, I'd like to just offer, the only way we are essentially getting around the Brown Act provision of having to post at individual addresses of where we're at is per AB 361. So as soon as that emergency order is lifted and AB 361 is no longer in effect, then those provisions of the Brown Act will go back in for remote access. And we've done that before, not necessarily maybe in this commission, but I have in other meetings where people have had to post where they're at when they're unable to attend and remotely. So we definitely are beholden to AB 361 if we look at holding a meeting in person or a hybrid version of that. I know several boards and commissions that have been operating in a hybrid fashion throughout this pandemic in various formats. And I think that works in a lot of instances. It also doesn't work in a lot of instances too. I agree with Commissioner Frost that the work of this commission does vary greatly as far as controversy and issues and interest of the community, meeting to meeting. That's also a lot to ask of staff as well, to balance that month to month based on what is going to be deemed controversial or not. I'm not opposed to with this commission either way, staying virtual, meeting in person, or a hybrid version of that until further determinations are made at the state level. I do suspect, just based on where things are moving, we are going to get some answers sooner rather than later especially on what's going to happen with AB 361 and the emergency order, because that's going to affect all commissions that are meeting in a fashion. So, it's definitely something we can decide tonight, or we can, continue on and wait for more information. We do have, that ability right now, since AB 361 is still in effect for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Commissioner Liebig. Other comments from fellow commissioners? Commissioner Butch?
Yeah. So
Commissioner Lololi's been trying to speak, but I don't think his microphone was on.
Oh, I don't have him in my gallery set up.
Okay, well, he's there in ours. He's been waving, trying to get in the last couple of people.
Linda, Commissioner Buzz, shall we let Commissioner Lowley go first,
Sure.
and then we'll come to you?
Yeah, I don't see him either, but
He
I
is
see him,
here because
but
he's
I'm
also
not
in my
hearing.
gallery view. But
yeah, he is on the list.
unfortunately, no sound is
No sound.
being picked up.
Yeah, we still can't hear you. What if the clerk could help with, is there a phone number you could call in to get sound or?
I would suggest logging off and then logging back on.
I know he's done that a few times. So
How about just the telephone? I think is a good idea.
Yeah, the phone number that was announced though doesn't appear on this
is there a
agenda.
number where he can call or the clerk can call him?
Diane, could you send me an email and send me the commissioner's contact information, please? I don't want to announce it on this live call, and then I'll contact him.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. This is one of the challenges sometimes with some of the video conferencing, but it's worth taking an extra minute or two and getting Commissioner Lowley set up. In the meantime, Commissioner Budge, would you like to go ahead and make your comments?
Yeah, it strikes me actually that the most significant challenge we have with this meeting is this Blue Jeans program as opposed to Zoom or something else that is much more common and much more flexible and seems to be relatively problem-free. And I would confess that for my personal circumstances, because I am the caregiver in my household now, continuing to meet remotely really works. But I do appreciate the comment that we are able to do this because of the governor's order that the Brown Act is suspended. And so if we went to something that was a hybrid, then I would be comfortable with that.
Thank
you.
you.
It doesn't sound like we need to do anything tonight. It sounds like this is a discussion we can defer for another couple of months.
Yes, my understanding is well, we should give staff direction as to continue our for in 2 or 3, 4 months, indefinite amount. Now, Commissioner Lowley, are you ready? Can you?
I just sent his information over to Florence, so it might be a moment.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will be glad to chime in and buy some time for Mr. Oh, is there another Commissioner?
Commissioner Chair, this is Commissioner Jones. This is Deanne Gillick. Just for one issue on timing, the statements have been correct that we can use these relaxed Brown Act rules due to AB 361. It is based upon the governor's proclamation of an emergency, and Commissioner Liebig mentioned that, you know, if that emergency proclamation is rescinded, then at that time we will no longer be able to meet with these relaxed meeting standards, not being at a public location and not having a public meeting location. And as Commissioner Frost indicated, we can still meet remotely. That just means somebody has to be at the meeting location, and everybody else has to make their meeting locations announced on the agenda and open to the public. So, you know, it's anticipated the governor's emergency proclamation will stay for some period of time, but it's also, there's concern that it will soon be rescinded and that we need to be thinking about changes. I do also know there is a legislation, it is a registration that wouldn't be effective currently until January of next year to change some of the teleconference rules. So that is also something that's in a flux and kind of unknown that may be a solution to some of our dilemmas.
Mm-hmm.
And Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
If I were to look into my crystal ball, which unfortunately does not give me the lotto numbers, but it can tell me sometimes where the legislature is going. Most likely, and this is probably something for the staff will be working with the clerk of the board on, most likely, if there are changes to the Brown Act, it'll probably include the ability for the public to participate virtually. Even if the commission has to meet in person, we would have to accommodate those who are watching online.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be something that we need to anticipate when things go back to quote unquote normal. The governor's order is rescinded, and we can no longer use AB 361.
Yeah.
Okay, just a second. Let me check it. Commissioner Lowly, do you have audio? No. All right, keep trying. Commissioner Frost.
Okay, I feel bad for Commissioner Laloe because he's struggling tonight. What I wanted to say is that I have a lot of constituents that are in the outlying areas. They work all day and they can't always just drive into a meeting, at drop of a hat. They have kids and they have duties in their life. And so it wouldn't hurt my feelings if it went two ways and they were able to, call in. It would expand, like from a standpoint of board of directors, it would expand our time because you wouldn't just have to come downtown and pay for parking to have a voice. You could actually call in or Zoom in or whatever you do. But in a way, I think for the working community, that is a benefit. It is opening ways for them to be able to, be on hold on a phone while they're cooking dinner. And when that moment comes, they get their 2 minutes and they didn't have to give up 6 hours to wait at the state capitol or at the county to give a voice. Thank you.
Yep. This is correct.
Yeah. Can we maybe look at just with consensus of nobody having a clear, conviction one way or another? Can we move this item and report back again at our next meeting in April and see where we're at then and maybe have more information? And so at this point, I would make a recommendation that we continue in a remote fashion and review again in April based on the governor's proclamation and any pending Brown Act updates.
All right, I see a confirmation from Loloe, and I can concur on that. I really agree with a lot of the comments that everyone has made in terms of with the newness or our evolving situation. If they change the Brown Act so we can have remote participation, that will go a long way for true public participation. And I think that would be a very, philosophically, that'd be a great move. It hasn't happened yet, but we'll keep an eye on it. Now, a procedure, I have no problem continuing this until next meeting and seeing if we have any more information. With that being said, quick question for Jose. Now, if we, I guess my question is how much of a rush is it going to be whenever 361 is revoked and we don't have any new Brown Act legislation in place? Is this just going to, I assume we'll have a few months.
Yeah, they would. I would assume that they would make the announcement and then you would have, a couple weeks to make updates like they've done with the mask mandates where they announce it and then you have, a couple weeks before that takes into effect. So I don't think it's going to be one of those where they rescind the proclamation and we have to, concur with that, in the 24 hours following that. So we would, have abilities to be able to do that and make, updates. At least that's been the precedent so far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if I may add to that, unless the changes to the Brown Act are done in an urgency fashion, if it's adopted by the legislature and if the governor signs off on it, it would just go into effect January 1st. So, as Commissioner Liebig said, we will have some cushion in time if things are done normally by the legislature, meaning regular statute and not an urgency bill.
Well, if I may sum up, it seems like we have a consensus to continue this through April and look at it again and see if we have any more information in a month. Are there any violent objections to this? Please jump up and down.
No.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Chair, via consensus, we will give you and your staff direction to continue our remote teleconferencing for our April meeting. All right. Oh, here's a good one. We're moving on. Number 10.
Oh, hi, Chair Jones.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, just for the record, I just wanted to make note that there is no public comment for this item.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. The line's open, but nobody's there. What do you know? But it's important to have it there. That's the whole issue, is to have it there. Thank you, Manuel. All right, business item number 10, receive information on SB 938. Jose, this has been near and dear to you and me. Please give us an overview.
Sure, and I'd like to start with two things. Number one, Commissioner Loloe, I sent you an email with a call-in number. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for this discussion. Second, I want to apologize to the commission that you did not get a staff report on this. I received the notification and the urgent call for support letters Friday afternoon, which is our last day in which we can amend the agenda and upload documents and be compliant with the Brown Act. And so I did not have a time to prepare a staff report. You just got a flyer as a staff report and a mocked up a letter of support, which is what I could do on such a short notice. So I'm going to try to do a little bit longer than normal or oral report, just so that you understand what what's being requested here. As you know, if you receive a proposal in which you do not have 100% landowner consent, and this is typically what happens with very large annexations, and definitely for proposals brought to you by a third party, which would be like a governmental agency. It's subject to a two-hearing process. The first hearing, the commission hears the information relating to the proposal and approves that. Basically, it's an approval hearing, so that you can basically weigh the options and either approve, deny, or conditionally approve a proposal. If it's approved, then again, you do not have 100% landowner consent. It goes to a second hearing, which is called a conducting authority hearing or a protest hearing. And that protest hearing gives the landowners and registered voters of the subject area that's being changed the ability to protest the commission's action. Nutshell, depending on the number of protests that are received, the proposal is either basically overturned by the landowners or registered voters, or if it's insufficient number of protests are received, the commission's decision stands. Or if it's somewhere in between, not enough to kill it outright, but more than the threshold to uphold the commission's decision, it goes to an election. And that is basically the conducting authority hearings in a nutshell, and the best way that I can explain it without going insane, because the statutes that govern the conducting authority hearing in Cortese-Notz-Hertzberg, in my professional opinion, are a mess. They're very confusing and they're very disorganized. Who knew? So, you know, I used to, or I still do. If you're a fan of Star Trek, you know that there's a particular species of aliens that if you look at them, you go insane. That's basically the Cortese-Notz-Hertzberg section relating to the conducting authority here. That's just how much of a mess it is. So several years ago, Al AFCO took it upon itself to basically try to bring order to this madness. Do two things. Number one, organize those statutes so they're a little bit easier to follow. And number two, to clean up basically a glaring obstacle in your commission's ability to carry out your mandate. And this is what I mean. If you recall, a particular threshold of protests that are received basically governs what happens next to the project. If it's brought in by a third party, which would be a landowner or a registered voter driven initiative or driven by a public agency, the threshold that needs to be met that either that directs or steers the proposal to an election or uphold the commission's decision is 25%. 25% of registered voters or 25% of landowners who own at least 25% of the total assessed land value. This is what I mean by the insanity piece. So that's the threshold if a proposal is brought to LAFCO. If in the instances in which the commission initiates a consolidation or a dissolution, which you are authorized to do under Cortese Knox, that threshold is only 10%, which means that if the commission, conducts a study, determines that an agency should be dissolved, and the constituents of that agency are better served by another entity, and so it should that failing district should be dissolved. Your significant obstacle is that you need to make sure that fewer than 10% of registered voters or landowners oppose your decision, which is a very tall order, especially if you have a district board of elections who is vehemently against that commission's action. They can whip up 10% of protests in a heartbeat. It's a very low threshold. It's been identified by other LAFCOs as a significant obstacle in the commission's ability to do its due diligence under the Cortese Knox Act. So that is what led to the statute SB 938. It was actually a recommendation from the Little Hoover Commission that LAFCO initiated proposals should have the same percentage threshold of protests as a third-party project. And so Cal LAFCO, in partnership with the League of California, the League of Cities, with CSAC, which is the California State Association of Counties, and very importantly, the California State District Association, the SDA, to meet and basically revamp those code sections. And it was a multi-year effort. The commission knows that I was part of that working group, and we reached an agreement between all parties. And by the way, the lead consultants for the Assembly and the Senate were also part of those discussions, so we know that they were able to provide input into those negotiations. We came up with a framework which basically works for everybody. And that threshold ensures that that all parties are satisfied, that their positions are respected and upheld. So SB 938, which basically has been assigned to the Senate Governance and Finance Committee. It will be the first committee hearing to consider this legislation. Cal LAFCO is requesting that the commission submit a letter of support for this legislation. Again, it's very important to all LAFCOs, and this LAFCO in particular. And this ensures that the Little Hoovers Commission recommendation has been gets an opportunity to be implemented. So 938 again creates a framework for the rights of districts that might be dissolved, and that there's a sufficient public input into that dissolution should a commission take that step. But in addition, it also ensures that if the commission decides that the dissolution is warranted, that the protest threshold is raised to 25%. And again, the last piece is that it organizes the statutes in a little bit more coherent, a little more logical order, so that you, staff, and members of the public can follow it in a manner. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this piece of legislation.
Madam Chair?
Okay, Commissioner Liebig, Liebig, and then Commissioner Little, and then perhaps Commissioner Loloi.
Thank you, Jose. I also sat on this work group on behalf of special districts and was impressed throughout the entire process on how the both groups came together, how this really was a collaborative piece of material that came, through legislation, so that it wasn't, fought out in the legislature. It was really the work, a lot of the work was done in a productive fashion so that we can have productive discussions in committee hearings and things. So I think we did come to a consensus of agreements that work for all parties involved, between LAFCOs, cities, counties, as well as special districts. And so, definite attention was paid to ensure that all the stakeholders were represented and engaged. So it was a very interesting process to be a part of, and I think I'm fine with supporting this and issuing this letter of support and moving forward.
Commissioner Little, yes.
Yes, I was just curious because I haven't read it, but is there more in this piece of legislation than just what we've discussed here, or is this essentially the sum of it? I know sometimes there's so many other things that go into these things. It's quite a piece of sausage, and I just want to make sure that what we're endorsing something that is very specific to LAFCO and our and not something that goes further afield.
Yes, that's a good question, Commissioner Little. That is basically the summation of it. What I did not cover were the parameters, and I'd be happy to include those here orally so that you're aware of what the parameters are. Basically, if a district is slated for either dissolution or consolidation, the determination for those proposed actions has to be documented in a special report or in a municipal service review. And it has to be, there has to be a 21 days notice before the commission is able to take up that report. The district in question has to be granted a minimum of 12 months to remediate and have an opportunity to provide a progress report to LAFCO on how it's doing. If at the end of those 12 months or whatever that remediation period is, the district still has not made sufficient progress, there must be a second 21-day publicly noticed hearing to determine if the identified issues are mitigated, and either LAFCO terminates the dissolution or it moves forward with the standard protest hearing process with a publicly noticed period of 60 days. So there's plenty of opportunity for the public and the district to weigh in. LAFCO can't just snap its fingers and dissolve a district. They do get a remediation period to make sure that they address the issues that have been identified in the MSR. And if there's sufficient progress and the commission is satisfied with the direction that the district has taken to resolve those matters, then the commission can terminate the dissolution process and life moves on.
Yeah, and Commissioner Little.
So this is specific. Everything in this is specific to Cal LAFCO. It's not something that has other issues in it. Okay, great. Thank you.
I was just going to offer
it is not a Christmas tree.
Well, yeah. Sometimes, after a hearing, it could wind up having some ornaments hung on it.
I was just going to offer too that, original discussions were having this be a part of a larger omnibus package, like, kind of what you're referring to, Commissioner Little, as far as a lot of other things in there. But this has been really segmented down to a single, focused bill, specifically about the Reorganization Act for Cortese Knox, focused right around, protest proceedings and the procedural consolidation. So that's really the whole of the bill, and it's not part of a larger omnibus package like it could have been.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for all that clarification. Loloi, are you able to verbalize with us? Commissioner Loloi, do we have an audio with you? No. Okay, so sorry. Yes, I'm prepared to support sending this letter of support. And please don't forget, it was out of the Little Hoover Commission for improvement on transparency, et cetera, that initiated this idea. And the carrying member, one of the authors, one of the sponsors is Hertzberg, as in Cortesi-Nats Hertzberg. So I think we have validation across the board, including all the very, very hard work that Commissioner Liebig and Jose have done on this working group over the last 2 to 3 years. And I want to acknowledge all that work, effort, and hopefully the success. So I'll entertain a motion to support
I would
that.
move that we have a letter in support of this.
Do I have a second? You can raise your hand, Sean. Okay. Deanne, would Sean's thumb up serve as a second so we can get him involved in this meeting?
Good idea.
Is that okay, Deanne?
Sure, we can do the second by sign language.
Hey,
Great, thank you.
ADA says we have to, so no worries.
And we can do roll call, and he can do a thumbs up or thumbs down on his vote, right?
Right. That's binary is not a bad thing sometimes. All right, we have a first and second.
Hi,
Madam
Chair
Clerk,
Jones.
would you- Sir.
Sorry, this is Manuel with the clerk's office. I just wanted to make
Oh,
note
and public
there is
comments.
no public comment. Yes.
Manuel, would you like to say something?
Just wanted to say happy evening to everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, Manuel. All right. I think we're ready for the vote now. Diane, would you please call the roll?
Yes, just to be clear, Commissioner Lowly is our second. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Budge,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
Little,
Aye.
Liebig,
Aye.
the Lowly. Thumbs up, if you would. Thank you. All in favor. Oh, Commissioner Jones, sorry. Didn't mean to leave you out.
Aye.
Wonderful. All in favor. Thank you.
Okay. I'm very glad that Sacramento LAFCO is sending that letter. It'll end up being very, very good for all of the LAFCOs. I appreciate that. All right, we're moving on to questions and comments. Executive Officer or Commission Counsel, do you have any comments?
Deanne?
Yeah, I have nothing to update other than what we've already talked about. So nothing further.
Thank you. Jose?
For me, the only thing I wanted to say is my goal for the next 2 meetings are basically that in April, in addition to picking up the final budget, thank you for your support on that, and discussion on the continuing meeting remotely. There's also going to be a discussion on the MSR project plan, which we talked about at the last meeting. So bring your ideas on that because it'll be a part of the agenda. And with that, that concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments or announcements from my fellow commissioners? Okay, going once, twice. All right. Well, I would like to thank both staff and Mr. Gamir for their reports tonight. Thank you all for hanging with us. We went through a lot of the legislative aspect of LAFCOs tonight. Thank you for attendance. There'll be a quiz next session. We will all pass. Don't worry. Deanne, was that a question you had, or was that just
No, I'm waving. Sorry.
I have not recessed it yet, because what we'd like to do, Commissioner Budge had requested a moment of silence for, how would you phrase that, Linda?
Oh, just we don't have to be in silence, but just to express our best wishes and our sympathy for what's happening to our friends and neighbors who have come to live with us from other from former Soviet Union countries. And we hope that this world will soon get back to a point where we can all respect each other's cultures again.
Mhm. And for the record, let it note that we are in total consensus on this. So thank you very much, Commissioner Budge. Hearing nor seeing any other further business, thank you all very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.